I think that like after a while of like being in that place where you're so scared to share, like especially for me when I just completely like stopped saying that I was like I could feel that kind of like there's something that I'm like holding back and missing, and then once I realized that it was because I stopped sharing, that was like very like wow, like this is the person like that I'm serving, like Jesus is the man that I was serving, like, and all of these like things like go kind of because he like saved my life, like, and everything. So it's definitely like hard to get out of the spot where you're just like shameful about it or guilty about it to the point where you realize that like it's okay and like you're working through it and still getting stronger through that trial.
Well, welcome back to the Finding Something Real podcast, friend. This is your host, Janell Wood, and you are listening to Season 8 or watching Season 8 of the Finding Something Real podcast. What's so exciting is today's special co-host. I want to say Season 8 has a whole cohort of co-hosts of beautiful young women who are coming forward to share their stories. And this young woman is especially special to me. And so it is with great joy that I get to introduce her today to you, somebody that I've loved for a very long time. And I'm excited to have this conversation, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But Frankie, welcome to the Finding Something Real podcast.
Thank you.
And as we're talking, you are how many days away from leaving for college?
I have 2 more days. I leave on Thursday.
Okay.
2 more days, I think. Yeah.
two more days. And you are recording in a very familiar looking room to me. You're
Yes.
recording in the bedroom I grew up in right now.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Because you're my niece, and you and your family live in the home that my parents built a long time ago, way before you were ever born. And that was my bedroom that I remember leaving for college from. So full circle moment right now. I'm just like overjoyed that you get to be here today. And we, for various reasons, haven't really had a relationship for a very long time. I mean, when you were little, I remember like spending a lot of time together and watching your performances and doing a lot of photographs with you. I have some really cute ones. But it's been a long time, and God in his grace and his only the way that he can plan out details has brought us back into each other's lives. And I'm just so incredibly grateful.
Yeah. It's incredible.
Yeah. It's the total God story. Maybe one day we'll
Yes.
share more of that. But for today, I'm going to let you take the lead here. Tell the listener, whoever's watching this, anything that you would like to share about your story, your faith journey, growing up, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I grew up in a family that was super, super involved in the church. So from super young age, like I was in church services. I was a part of like the youth and like the kids ministries and everything. My dad was big in leadership, and then my mom was doing all the kids ministries. My brother was my youth pastor, and the worship leader. So a lot of my family is just super involved in church.
And your siblings are a lot older than you.
Oh yeah. My brother is 15 years older than me, and then my sister is 12 years. So big difference.
Okay. Now, why is
Yes.
that? Why is there such a big age difference?
I'm adopted, so I came quite later. My parents did foster care, so they got me when I was like months old. So
yeah. And that was a total God thing, because
Oh yeah.
if you're okay with me sharing this part,
Yeah.
it was the impossible, right?
Mm-hmm.
I remember your mom and dad, they were like, there's no way, if I remember the story correctly, and Joanne can correct me later if she wants, because I can't remember all the details, and she would. But it was like there was no way they were ever going to be able to keep you because of different, situation things. And in fact, they had to give you up. And I can't remember how many months later, but they got a phone call. Do you remember the story? I'm sure that you've heard it.
I've heard it. I don't remember how many months it was, but yeah, they were told to give me up to a different family. And then, because that family I was staying with was my actual blood family, but then they ended up, when I was staying with them, saying that it just like wasn't working out.
Mhm.
And so they ended up calling my mom and saying that she could come get me like right now. So they like that day got in the car and drove.
Yeah.
It was pretty far away to come and get me from the house. So, and then I
Yeah.
think that was the last time I left them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think our dad was there too. I think he
Yes.
was in the car too with Joanne. Yeah. It was just this crazy, like, what, like this
Yeah.
miracle. Yeah. And then I remember the day that like they signed papers and then your party. Do you remember that
hmm
party? Like me taking pictures of you with the
I
hat on?
vaguely,
Yeah.
yes, I vaguely remember that party.
It's
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah.
hmm
But you don't remember a time in your life when you weren't with your family currently.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
No, I was way too young. Yeah.
Yeah. So then you grow up in this family that's really dedicated to church
Mhm.
and you're there. I'm guessing you're there all the time. Were there
All the
activities all the
time.
time? Mm-hmm.
It felt, it kind of felt like all the time. Especially when I was younger, because I couldn't like stay by myself. And then when I grew up, I just like kept going because I was like, I always do anyways.
Mm-hmm.
It's been the same, like same building, same kind of church family as I was growing up. So yeah.
Wow. And it was a pretty small church, if I remember
hmm
correctly.
It is definitely, it's less than 100 people. Um, and I like, I have personal stories about all of them. Like it kind of feels like they're my family growing up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was that like for you growing up in that kind of environment?
Um, I think it was super like exciting for me when I was super young. Like just to have like people around me all the time. Like it kind of felt like I was going out all the time, like playing and stuff with other kids. Um, and then once I got a little bit older, kind of middle school time into high school, a lot of the youth in our church left. So I was basically the youngest person there
Mm.
besides like the infants. So it was definitely different once I was there all the time and it kind of felt like it was just me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I still enjoyed like going there all the time, but it just kind of felt a little bit different once we got to the point where all the youth left. And it was just like, yeah, it was a little bit different to relate to people after that.
Yeah. Did you feel like you had community and you were able to relate with people before that?
Um, in a way, I definitely don't think that like just because it was like a church building doesn't really mean the relationships I had there were genuine and like Christ-centered, I'd say.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely felt like they were just friends who I met at the church in a way. Um, and I grew up with them, so it was just almost like family. But I definitely say it wasn't the community that I was looking for
Yeah.
when I was growing up.
What
Yeah.
what what do you think you were looking for? Um,
Once I got middle school, high school, it was kind of around the same time that COVID was happening. So I was looking for any community at the time. Like I just didn't really have like many people around me. But I also didn't feel like I had ever experienced genuine like friendship and care. And yeah, just Christ centered because I've always heard like my parents talk about like, oh, like the youth group is like the best like connection, you know. And like my brother would say that like when he grew up, like his youth group was amazing and that was like his best friends. But I never felt like our conversations were genuine or anything like that. So I was seeking like a deeper connection, like to feel like I was fully like expressing myself and they were fully expressing themselves to me and like we were both there for each other.
mhm.
And I definitely didn't get that from my church.
Yeah. What about your personal relationship with Christ during that time? What was that like?
Um During that time, I would say I basically just didn't understand what it meant to have a personal relationship. I was very like I would go to church because I felt like that was like the right thing to do. It's just like what my family did all the time. So I never questioned it. Like I wasn't against going to church or anything. I'd look forward to it. And I knew it was like a good thing to do, but I don't think I fully understood what it meant. And I think once I got to like late middle school or like my freshman year of high school, I was definitely treated a lot differently when I was in like school and everything because I was a Christian and because I
Mm.
labeled myself as a Christian, even if it wasn't like the truest like time in my life where I like felt like I was following God, like I was still getting those labels and everything.
Mm.
And they were pretty harsh, like things to deal with, like your close friends saying to you. So I, at one time, like in my freshman year, kind of, I never like decided I wasn't a Christian, like that never happened, but I stopped telling people that I was
Mm-hmm.
Christian, or I stopped being like proud of that part of me. Like if people asked what I was doing on Sunday, I'd never like mention I was going to church or like things like that, just because I felt kind of shame that
Mm.
I was associated with like that label.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
So, what kinds of things were they labeling you as, or what were some of the stereotypes that you felt were kind of flung on you?
a lot of political like labels, even though I was so young that I was just like, I don't even know. Like it was never something I really paid attention to. But um they kind of labeled me and like Christians in general as like hateful people
Mm.
towards like different communities. Like a lot of the time it was like the weirdest thing to me. They would say that I was like racist and stuff. And I was like, how? Like I really don't think that I am. Like that makes no sense to me. And it would be like I'd be like, I feel like me of all people I wouldn't be, you know. But
For those listening, how would you identify your ethnic background?
yeah, I'm Native American and
Mm.
Filipino.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
You're not exactly as white as I am.
no. So those
Yeah.
labels are so confusing to me because I was like, I feel like me of all people would never do that to like a community. Like that's not the way I think. Like I feel like especially living in like the town that I do, it's very like I have never met another person that's my
Mhm.
ethnicity. So I've always been kind of like the odder person out, which is fine, but like that label is just like, whoa, like that makes no sense to me.
Mhm.
Um, yeah. And like other things about like like maybe it was like June, so it's Pride Month, and people were like stereotyping me as like hateful towards those people, even though I've never been like
Mhm.
some of my closest friends were a part of that community. So I was like, I've never been hateful towards any of those people or
Mhm.
like treated them any differently because of it. So that was just like confusing for me to understand why I would be labeled that.
Mhm.
Apart from my actions, it was mostly just because I said that I was Christian, or even just because my parents were Christians.
Mhm. Were people actually saying those things to your face, or were there things that you heard like around? Like, do you remember a particular time when somebody said something directly to you?
Yeah, I heard a lot around, but there was a like a group of friends that I was in where they I've kind of grown up with them and they were hanging out with my family. And then later when they left, um, when my parents left, they were like, "Oh, I really love your family. Like, they're so nice." And they were like, "Well, too bad they're like Trump supporters, or else I'd like them, you
Oh
know."
gosh.
And I was like, "Oh," I was like, "I don't know what to say to that. Like, I have no idea. I'm like 13 at this point. Like, I don't know." But
Mm.
that was something towards my family that people would say all the time, even though I've never said anything about like our political views and like
Mm.
any like that was so far from what I was talking about at the time. So it was just like a weird label. And then there was another time that they were saying that I was the only like it was a group of I think like four people that like they all were kind of part of like the LGBTQ community or um just like were really passionate about that and like awareness and everything. They said that I was the only homophobic person that they would hang out with.
Oh.
And so I was like I was like, "Oh, I didn't think I ever gave off the impression for any sort of like negative sentiment towards that." Like
Mhm.
it was kind of at the point where I was still figuring out like what I believed. So I
Yeah.
was just very confused about those labels.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Wow. Did they ever ask you what you believed, or?
No,
wanted
they
to.
they never really asked. It was just like a thing they thought about Christians in general. Like it was never an individual belief thing.
Mm. So you said you kind of shrunk back from telling people you were Christian,
Hmm.
which, I mean, that sounds like like a lot of people might have made that decision too. So then what
Hmm.
happened? That was what, your freshman year around that time?
Yeah, yeah. That was largely like the end of my eighth and then beginning of my freshman year. Um, I met a girl in my interior design class just like sitting. I was very like at that time I didn't really like to talk to anyone. Like it was kind of a time where I was just we still had masks on, so I just kind of like hide, like I wasn't really talking to many people. And there's this girl who like kept talking to me like every single day. Like she sat next to me in my class and she just like keep talking and talking and talking. And I was like not giving her anything back. Like I was not responding or anything. But I ended up becoming really close friends with her. She's literally my best friend now.
Mm.
And she invited me to go to Young Life with her. And we did like tennis together and just like grew super close like through sports and everything. But once she invited me to Young Life, it was like the biggest like culture shock for me almost because it was like I've never met like a like that big of a community of people who even if they're not Christian, they're still open to Christians. Like I've
Mhm.
never met that many people who were that like loving towards people who are Christians.
Mhm.
And I've never like met a lot of Christians who are my age. So seeing that many people that are like just those 4 years that are there to listen to like the talk or who are there to be with the people who are like the leaders there was just like really crazy to me.
Mhm.
And I feel like that's when it definitely turned around
Wow.
my,
How
my
did your
perspective.
how did your parents feel about you going to Young Life?
Um, they at first were kind of like they were kind of nervous about it just because I think when they grew up, it had like a different impression, like for people that they were kind of. I wouldn't agree with this. A lot of people still say this, but they would say that Young Life is kind of like a kind of more just like a club than it is like
Mm.
a deep relationship or like something you grow from. It's not like a youth group, is what kind of it seems the impression was. But once I kept going and like they realized that it's designed to be an outreach program for people who aren't Christians. Um, so you always have to start with like the basics of like
Mhm.
the gospels and like those sorts of things. And I don't think I realized how important it was for me, even though I have been a Christian my whole life, to hear those things in like the
Mhm.
basics of forms so that I can understand it like in a deeper way, I'd say.
Yeah.
So once I got to like around like last year, this year sort of time, I formed like a really small group of really close friends that were in that community. And now my parents love Young Life, like
Yeah.
go to fundraisers, like they host things like it just definitely it takes someone being in it to understand like what it's about,
Mhm.
um especially when it's designed for something different than like what I needed, but it still ended up benefiting like my relationship with God. So
Yeah. Would
yeah,
you say that was the first time you really understood what it was like to have a relationship with God was because of Young Life?
yeah, definitely. I went to like one of their camps in Malibu, Canada, and or British Columbia, um but it was definitely like one of those like Christian camps where they give you like the story of the cross and everything and like super surface level it felt to me.
Mhm.
But once I like kind of went through the whole week like trying still to listen and like kind of take it to heart, I had never seen like that sacrifice as like something he did specifically for me.
Mm.
So those sort of like applications where they were talking about like, hey, this is specifically for you, like he did this for you and he wants a relationship, that
Mhm.
was very different from what I felt growing up. So that's when I kind of started understanding like, hey, like it's not just like a religion that you go to on Sundays, like it's a constant relationship that like God himself wants to be in with you. Like, yeah. So
Mhm.
that's when I changed my perspective.
Yeah. Yeah, that's life changing. Life
Hmm.
changing. Yeah. Had you been baptized before that or?
Yeah, I was baptized super young. I think I was like 6. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so you kind of had this like, wow, this is like possible that God loves me and wants me.
Hmm.
Um, you had this transformation, and the gospel's life changing. And yeah, I love that because many times, as you were talking, I was like, man, it always comes down to that, right? The gospel.
Hmm.
It's the life changing message of the cross. Um, so that changed your life, and then what happened?
Um, I think that it's definitely been like a really slow like journey from then to now of me like understanding what it means to walk with God like every day. Um, I went back to school and everything, and those people who I was really close with, I just kind of decided like it was not good for me to be close to them at the time that I was. Um, I'd always kind of wished I could have stayed closer to them so I could have like still loved them and like been close to them through everything. But at the time where I was still like just getting used to like publicly saying that I was a Christian, I was like, I can't like keep getting hit over and over about that. So
Yeah.
I stayed really close friends with my best friend now and with the whole Young Life group, and we just kept going through like high school together. And I think it was just like every single year, like with every like meeting we had, with every like camp, I just kind of became more excited to like share with people
Mm.
that I was a Christian. And it's like now become like one of those things where I can't like have a conversation without mentioning it because I'm so excited about it. And that's like the biggest turnaround, I'd say, like
Mm.
that I've seen in my life, and like the way that God's changed my perspective on like how to share with people that I'm a Christian. It's become less about shame and more about like I'm really excited to share like that this is part of who I am.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it reminds me of Pastor Josh White out of Door of Hope in Portland, Oregon. He says it's not hard to talk about something you love. And
Hmm.
when you're receiving that love for yourself, you're like, wait a second, I just want to share this with everybody. It's
Yeah.
a part of who you are. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you've gone on some pretty big trips, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. I did one mission trip last summer to Kenya, and I was there for 6 weeks. It was quite a long time.
That's a very long
Um,
time.
yeah, it was kind of the first time I like saw God pushing me towards something, and I just like was like, I don't know how this is gonna work out. Like, I don't know how I'm gonna do this, but I'm just gonna do it because it feels like that's what I'm supposed to do. I heard about it when I was at the reality conference, the Apologetics conference, and
Where we
like,
ran into each other last
yeah,
year.
where we ran into each other. Yes. Um, and I just at first it kind of seemed like nothing was going to work out for me to go, but I met like a girl in class that I just didn't know what to say to her because I was just meeting her. And so I just mentioned that I was like maybe going on a mission trip. I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm trying to figure out if I'm going to go to Africa this summer or not." And she was like, "Wait, no way. Like why would you go to Africa?" And I said I wanted to go on a mission trip. And she said that she had been praying for so long that she could find a way to be able to go on a mission trip to Africa because that was like her whole like life's dream was to be able to just go down and serve. And I had knew nothing about her before.
Mm.
So that was just a moment where I was like, okay, well, now I have someone to go with. I feel like there's no excuse to not go. So yeah.
Wow. And that was someone from school or someone from the conference?
Someone from school. Yeah.
Oh,
I was
wow.
just like someone in my class that I was talking to. Yeah.
That's cool. So what happened when you got to Africa?
It was definitely a it was definitely an experience. I the whole like we had a training camp once we got there. It was just like um in the States for like a week and a half so that we could like be in the word and kind of get like our heart right. And that whole thing was such a like experience for me. I definitely got so much out of just every day serving, like morning to night. Um, changed my perspective on like what service means and like
Mm.
everything like that. We worked a lot with kids in schools and orphanages, so it was a lot of just like playing games or like cleaning up churches and those sorts of things. So yeah, it was really good. It was very like physically serving, so that
Yeah.
was something I'd never really done like out of my own like willingness, I'd say. So that was that was definitely different, but it was amazing. Yeah.
Mm. So what was your biggest takeaway from that experience?
Um, I think my biggest takeaway was that in anything I do, I should be giving credit to God, and like any service I do is worshiping Him if it's in His name. Um, there was a lot of times throughout there where I just realized that like going out and doing street ministry like wasn't my thing, and that was a lot of what we were doing is like having those conversations. And so I definitely struggled with like what am I supposed to do since I can't do this? Um, and I just kind of found a lot of excitement in doing the little service like cleaning up, or like I served food a lot to the kids during church services and everything, and that was like something I was super comfortable with and I was really excited to do,
Mm-hmm.
just to show like love towards the kids and like bring them stuff that makes them happy.
Yeah.
And it was a big takeaway for me that like for anything I do, it's a service to God if I'm doing it like for Him. It doesn't have to be like the big stage and everything.
Yeah.
So
And now you're headed to what college and why?
yes, I'm going to Biola University in Southern California. I saw their stand at the Apologetics conference. It's a really good thing I went there because otherwise all these other things wouldn't have happened. But I heard about it there, and my dad was like super excited about it. And I kind of just like didn't know what I wanted to do yet. So I was like, oh, whatever. But um, as time went on, I kept hearing everything like good about what's coming out of it. And all the professors and everything, like, it is just like so many names that I had heard before are from Biola or work there. So I was super excited to visit and kind of check it out. And then I went down and visited, and it's like the smallest campus ever. And I think it's the most amazing thing. Um, it was very inviting and comforting when I went there. So I just kind of felt like I was like, I don't know why I wouldn't choose to go there, kind of
Mm.
thing.
Wow. So I wanted to say, so now you're all like everything's good. You have a relationship with Jesus. You don't have any questions. You're going to school, like you know. But what I love, and I think that it's really important that we highlight here, right? Like because over season 8 and having a lot of different discussions, I'm going to be talking to different young women who have, and we just got done with the retreat. The first time we did an in-person Finding Something Real retreat and live like time together where we got to take pictures and record, but also just get to know one another and affirm one another and worship together. It was just beautiful. But all of you have different stories. You're all at different places in your faith journeys. And you, quite obviously, are someone who I think a lot of people would look at as like a poster child of church gone right. You know what I mean? Like, here's somebody who loves Jesus and she's going to a Christian school, and not to downplay that because it's amazing, but just because that's been a great experience for you doesn't mean you don't have questions or things that you struggle with. And I think by you being here today, Frankie, and don't let me put words in your mouth if I'm misquoting, you let me know. But I think what you offer is opportunity for someone who has a similar story as you to say, wait a second, I still struggle. I still have questions, and there's still things because faith, this walk with Jesus, it's a daily walk, and there's still things that come up. Is that fair? Did I put words
Yeah.
in over your story that weren't true? Is it okay?
No, I
Okay.
definitely agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. And I think a lot of the people that I've met too that have walked like a similar journey, like have always said that once you get to this point where like it kind of seems like everything's good, you still have so many questions. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, so many struggles with those sorts of things.
Yeah. And I think, and I don't mean to pass judgment on other ministries because I think that there's spaces and places where this is the case, but like, I don't think there's been a lot of opportunity that I've seen for people who are strong in the faith to express some of those things, to express like, wait a second, I still struggle with this, or I still have questions. Because I think sometimes what we do is we say like, oh, great, now go share it. And in our sharing, we try to, I don't want to say act, but sometimes it's like, we're going to share like how amazing everything is. And I know I've struggled with that in my own journey. Would you agree with that? Or what are your
Mm-hmm.
thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think especially once you get to this point, it feels like there's a lot of pressure to give a really good impression
Mhm.
about like Christianity and everything. Like I don't want to go and share with people who aren't Christian or even who are like younger in their faith, like the things that I'm like thinking about necessarily because I don't want them to take that away from Christianity. I don't want them to take away that it's full of like doubt or that it's full of uncertainty
Mhm.
because like that's not what I take away from it. Like my number one thing I want to show is that like now I have a great relationship with God and that like Jesus saved my life. Like that's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Um but I think encouraging like community and relationships where you can ask questions for later down the road when it kind of feels a little bit more uneasy to ask is super important to like
Yeah.
continue to grow and everything.
Yeah. And I think too, like asking those hard questions as we are on our journeys, it opens up room for other people who struggle with those questions privately, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because when you're trying to, put on a good face for stuff and secretly you're struggling, when those things are kept in the dark, it's a lot easier to. I don't know if you've had this experience yet, but I remember in my early 20s, my best friend, somebody we'd done youth group together, all these different things. And telling me like basically I'm not sure I'm a Christian anymore. And it just came out of nowhere,
Mm-hmm.
nowhere. But she'd been wrestling with questions for a long time, and I think felt like maybe she couldn't express those. And to be fair, like at the time, I don't know if she could have expressed those things to me. Maybe I would have just given her a bunch of pat answers and been like, you just need to pray more. And not that we don't need answers or prayer. We need all those things. But sometimes we just need to hear people and where they're at. So, um, like I said, we just got done with this retreat. And one of the things that really stood out to me in our time together was the vulnerability, and the openness for everyone to share some of their story. And I'd love for you, if you feel comfortable, to share any questions or struggles that maybe you opened up about there that you are willing to share here. I know I do have like a questionnaire that you filled out a couple months ago that has some things we can talk about, but anything that comes to mind off the top of your head, or I can bring them up specifically.
Yeah. Um, I think the main thing that I've kind of been wrestling with the last couple of months or maybe a year is just after going on the mission trip, there was a moment that like I still think about it all the time where they were choosing like what everyone gets to do for the day to go do ministry and like to go serve at a church. So there was like a ton of jobs that you could do. And I kind of watched everyone like get handpicked one by one to like go do something
Mm.
like that I felt like, oh, they have meaning. Like this leader can see that they have a lot to offer. And I ended up being one of the people that was just like, oh, like you can just like wait to see like who needs help, sort of a thing. Um, so that kind of hit hard where I was like, am I not showing that like I want to serve, or am I just not at the point where it's like I have something to offer yet?
Mm.
Um, just service wise. And that's the thing that I've kind of struggled with through this last year is that like, oh, like they're looking for leaders in Young Life, but they never really considered me, or those sorts of service things that like I really want to do something. Like I so bad want to be involved in like something where I can give my time and my effort, but it didn't really seem like there was much being offered or like a path really.
Mm.
Um, I've always like loved school, so I just assumed, oh, that just means I need to go to school and like um my place is kind of there. But then like I can go to a Christian college and I'm still not sure how I'm specifically going to offer like
Mm.
service.
Mm.
So that's just kind of like one of those things where a lot of people just say that each story like has a point and like you're working for God in your own ways, but like it's hard for me to recognize what I personally can do.
Mm. So if we were to put that in the form of a question, can you think of what it might be? Because I'm trying to think of how we phrase that.
I would say I'm just wondering about finding a, like a role in serving God, I guess.
Mm.
Like, you know how like the Bible says that like the church is full of different body parts and they're all equally as important. I'm trying to find like what part that I'm supposed to be serving.
Mm. It's good. It's a good question. And I know it's something we discussed a little bit when you were here, and we all had different things to share with you. Did any of
Yeah.
that stick? Did any of it stick?
Yeah, I definitely like I've always gotten a lot of joy from service, like personal sort of service. So that did stick. And now I'm just kind of like, is that what it is? Am I supposed to be like following that? Or like, it's just like doubt, I guess, in myself to be able to like find a spot where I can continually do that. You know what I mean? Like, it's not, I can see that, like, oh, I love personally serving other people, but then it's like, how am I going to continually do that and use it effectively, I guess?
Yeah. And you're also at this very critical place in life where there's extra pressure to figure it out, right?
Yeah.
It's not just like take it day by day and God will show you, although
Yeah.
that is the advice and it's great. That's key, right? Take it day by day and God will show you. But
Yeah.
so you're going into Biola. Are you an upperclassman already, or did you? I can't remember if you did Running Start. Did you?
Yeah, I did do Running Start, so I'm going in as a junior.
Yeah. So now you have to declare a major probably pretty
Yeah.
soon. Yeah. And have you decided on a major currently?
I am going to be majoring in psychology.
Yeah.
Always found it super interesting. So I kind of just chose it because I feel like it can turn into a lot of different things.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, you declare a major and then it's like, oh, now what? Like, what am I supposed to do with this? And it can be very anxiety producing. Do you feel like there's an anxiety element to that question of like trying to figure stuff out? Like, I know, I'm not your age and my kids are starting to get to your age, which is crazy to me. Because when I started finding something real, they were all little. So I was like, oh, I'm more like a big sister. And now I'm like, I'm more like a mom like, in some of these situations. And in this case, I'm just your aunt. But like, do you feel like what I see is your generation, there's so much angst. There's so much like trying to figure things out and feeling like you're falling short a lot. Do you feel that current too, or have you seen it, and how do you avoid being affected by it?
Yeah. I actually continually have been talking about this to like anyone who will listen. So I think that my generation like is kind of like really obsessed with like success and like sort of just being like a great person. Like it's obsessed with like morning till night working on yourself and like getting to that point where you can like be proud of like who you are as a person and like being successful as a person. And I feel like that's kind of something that should come a little bit later, especially for like my age, where it's just like that means that morning to night we're super busy. And I feel like that's a lot of the time if we're working and we also do like a sport and we go to school and we're also doing like the college classes if you're in high school or just like doing a lot of extra stuff so you can get ahead, it doesn't leave a lot of space for you to process anything. And so I think that's something that I definitely did was I worked all the time. I was in a sport and I worked really hard in the sport because I wanted to be really, really good. And then I wanted to get like straight A's in all my classes and I wanted to get my associates. And by the time I got to the end of it and I like took a second and I was like, wow, I really did all that. I looked back and I have no idea like what it was for. Like I did it, but then I never dealt with like what I was working towards. So now I have all that like anxiety where I'm like, I'm supposed to pick something, but I've never been working towards something. I've always just been working to work. And so all the anxiety of like doing really good kind of turned into okay, like now I really have to make something good out of it, or else it was like kind of all for nothing.
Yeah.
But I think I've heard that from a lot of my friends that like there's never a spare second to like think, or spare second to just rest and like understand what is going on like around
Mhm.
us and everything. Um, so it becomes like really hard to process, and I feel like that's definitely the time where you should be processing things, especially when you're supposed to choose like where your path is going very, very soon.
Mhm.
Um, I dealt with it by just kind of picking. I tried to like put a little bit less pressure on like what I was going to do and more where I was going, because I could not answer like the what I was going to do question. So I was like, if as long as I'm in a really good environment, and then moving forward, I remembered to deal with that kind of stuff, I should be fine. So that's
Hmm.
another reason why I picked Biola, was just because I was like, I know that that school is something like their programs and everything is something I trust, and I feel like I'm gonna find people there that will help me. Um,
Mm.
so I can't really go back and fix like the way I did it then. So I'm just trying to focus on taking a second to reflect and not be so focused on like everything being perfect. Moving on.
It's something real. My camera just died, I think, 'cause of all fine. It's fine. We're gonna keep going because it's still recording. Um,
Okay.
just ignore me. If you're listening, you won't know anything about this, and if you're watching, this is real life. Um, I think it would be really, if you're open for it, I'd love to have somebody come on and talk about that pressure and anxiety thing, because what you're describing, it's across the board, like your peers and this generation. But then also, if you add the component of, the pressure of being a good Christian, that's a lot of recipe for burnout and feeling like, what is all this for? So I feel like there's a spiritual element there too that I'd love to talk to somebody deeper about that. Yeah, yeah, we'll
Yeah,
put
no,
that
that
on.
sounds good.
We'll put that on the list for sure. And then the
Yeah.
other question, so besides the, anxiety pressure piece, it's also that giftings and identity piece of where do I belong? If, because like you're saying, I mean, Frankie, just love, this is why like I'm downstairs underneath the loft. Anyone who's watched this before, oh look, I look like I actually have guns here. That actually makes me happy. Okay. But anyway, I work out sometimes. Anyway, but when we were on the retreat, I asked you to do something that I had planned to like throw together, and it was just I wanted you to write out a list of names, and I gave you a project, and you took that project and you did it with such excellence. Um, and it took you a couple hours, I'm sure. You wrote all these names down, you double checked them, you wrote with such beautiful penmanship, you did the thank you cards and stuff. And I mean, those giftings, they really matter. And it's, I think some of that question or some of that topic has to do with a world where we don't appreciate those things, where we don't appreciate the people who don't have a YouTube channel, who aren't, running, from here to there and trying to make everything look great all the time, but are actually like sitting down and waiting for the thing that God has for them. And I don't know, I think that there's a really good conversation in there too about identity, and embracing the fingerprint that God gave you instead of that pressure of like, the world wants me to do this, or this loved one wants me to do this, and I think um, unfortunately sometimes we can't even identify all the pressure that we have, I mean, social media, loved ones, a lot of times it comes from places where you think, well, this is a safe place, and no, this person has an expectation for you too, and it's trying to figure that out. So yeah, does that sound like we're like, does that resonate?
Yeah, that definitely does.
Okay, awesome. Okay. We will, that's two conversations right there, at least. Um, okay. So you also, in the form that you filled out, had mentioned how you're trying to work to grow your passion and knowledge of who God is. Would you share a little bit more about what that looks like and what that day-to-day relationship looks like?
Yeah. I would say that since getting to the point where I'm excited to share and I'm like, okay, opening my Bible in public sort of thing, like, I have kind of switched to, okay, I'm proud of it, but now I actually have to like know what I'm pursuing. And I have one of the things that recently I've been working on is that I haven't really read the Bible like on my own time growing up. So I don't have a lot of that like basic like knowledge and everything of like who God is and like what he did and everything. Um so I'm currently trying to go through the Bible pretty quickly so that I can just like get the scariness of reading the Bible out of the way and then I can go back and really study it because yeah, it's definitely daunting.
What's
But
daunting about it? Tell me about that a little bit more
it's
because
just
that's
huge.
curious.
Yeah, the Old Testament is really scary for me. Because I just haven't read it and like I get really upset if I don't understand like why something is important. So um it takes me a long time to like actually go through things without getting discouraged. And yeah, I met these two people like out of chance. Oh, there's a lot of people I'm meeting out of chance, which is just like so funny.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, not chance, but like,
Yeah.
it's just like you go there and you're like, what in the world just happened? Like that makes no sense. But I met these two people at a concert that I went to. I drove all the way to Montana to go see like a festival, and like the people who happened to be sitting behind us were both Christians, and me and my best friend started talking to them, and they had been Christians for like a year or like 8 months, like not that long, and they like knew their Bibles through. Like they were like super passionate about like each individual thing that like God has done in their life and like who God is, and they had so many references and like everything, like so much knowledge that they had like gone and to go seek out because they're so excited about the like newness of their faith, I guess. And I've never had the excitement of my faith being new because the Bible has been in my room since like I could talk. So I've grown up with the stories and everything, and it's never been something I've been passionate about. So now, it definitely has felt new to read the Bible through now, like understanding it more. But I just like now I'm working on actually going through it and understanding it and everything and like being excited about it. So yeah.
As you're talking, I'm thinking of a couple of Biola professors that have been on this podcast, Janine Hanger and Eric Thomas, and both of them sharing their passion for the Word of God. And maybe we'll reach out to one or both of them and see if we could have a deeper conversation about that. Because, I mean, I hear what you're saying. And I think it is, you're coming across a lot of things that you are going to have questions about. So what do you do when you come across those passages? Because there are some pretty hard things in there. I don't know how far you've gotten, but if you're speed reading, maybe you don't notice. But I'm like, the slower you go, the more you're like, wait a second, what is this in here? What is this about?
I'm doing the Bible plan with three of my close friends that two of them are the ones that I met at the concert who were like super passionate about it, and then one of them is my best friend. We're all kind of going through it semi together, like some ahead of the others, like kind of, but in the same order. So being able to like ask in that context is really helpful to ask people my age too, because I feel like they know like why I'm asking that, like especially culturally, like I'm just like sometimes things just don't make sense to me. I don't know. But I also feel pretty safe to ask. My dad has a lot of knowledge about the Bible. Like I'm any question I ask, he's probably already got like some sort of a either a reference or like something I can think about. So yeah, I definitely go to people a lot, and then if it's like really confusing to me, I will pray about it and then I'll come back to it later and just like keep thinking about it. But yeah.
Cool. Well, would you want to talk to one of these Bible professors from Biola if we could find one who'd come talk to us?
Yeah,
Be fun.
that'd
Okay.
be fun.
And then if you have any like burning questions, depending on where you're at with your reading plan, you can just
Hmm.
write them down and save them for them and
Okay.
ask some tough things.
Yeah, I'll
Save all the
definitely
good
be thinking
stuff.
about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And then finally here, you had asked about like hearing God's voice, direction type things. Would you
Mhm.
share more about that?
It's kind of just like I have heard like or seen specific things that like I could tell I was supposed to be going that direction, like especially with the mission trip. Like for me, I can tell something is going like I'm going in the right direction if things just start kind of like falling into place and I'm like that doesn't make sense. So that's definitely God. But sometimes when that goes away, like, and I feel like I'm just kind of like stuck in a position and like there's not really much direction, I kind of freak out a little bit because I don't know how to make like my own decisions.
Mhm.
Um, so I think just trusting
Hmm.
in his direction and also being able to use my own like discernment and like which direction I should go is definitely something I'm struggling like to find the balance of like listening and then also like being discerning.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and without freaking out because
Yeah.
sometimes I freak out. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And hearing his voice when it sounds like a whisper, or maybe it's so faint that you're not even sure he's speaking.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I like it. Um, there's another topic right there. Anything else that I mean, you and I, a few months ago, I said, "Hey, Frankie, I'm thinking about starting the podcast again. Would you want to co-host?" I mean, right away, it was a yes, which was so crazy. And then I mean, even before, it was still in my mind, like, oh man, maybe she just said yes because I cornered her or something. But you texted me and said, I really want to do this. But you and I have talked about this a few times. We've had some great conversations about it. But this is your opportunity to explore anything. So, is there anything else that you think of? You're like, I'd love to talk to somebody about that. Um, if you have something that you're thinking of, now would be the time to share.
Okay. Um, ooh, I definitely probably do. I think something I just always have thought about is um it's kind of the whole reason I got in the position in the first place of like not wanting to be um associated with Christianity is because of like all the I guess stereotypes and like the views that people have on Christians, but also because of like behavior of Christians that I've seen like in the media and everything, like
Mhm.
online, in person, like attitudes and sort of things. I don't really have like a question. It's just like a topic. Like I feel so strongly that if we're Christians, we should be super loving and like super welcoming and like empathetic and excited to talk to people even if like their beliefs are so different from ours.
Mhm.
Um, but that's just like that's kind of how I got in the position in the first place of like not even wanting to be associated with it. So I don't know. I wonder if that's like a common thing that people who are Christians experience. I don't know. I have
Yeah.
like it feels like so hard to be a Christian publicly without all of that. So
Mm-hmm.
I feel like shielding yourself from that, especially if you're not like super strong in your faith, is really difficult. So
Yeah.
yeah.
How to be a strong believer when you're afraid of being misunderstood and
Hmm.
maybe rightly misunderstood because of the company that you keep, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good. Yeah, I sent a book to your dad. I told him about it when I ran into him last year, called Mark of the Christian by Francis Schaeffer.
Hmm.
And it was so good. It like, when you read a book, it was a small little book,
Hmm.
but it stays with you forever. And you're just like, wait a second, you keep coming back to it. that book really ministered to me last summer because he talks about, and Francis Schaeffer's, passed away, so we can't have him on the podcast, but it was so good because it was talking about the world has the right to judge us, that Jesus gave the world the right to judge us by the way that we love one another, by the way that we love. And I think that's kind of what you're talking about here. It's like, how do we represent Christ to a world that already thinks we're crazy, where the name of Jesus is controversial?
Hmm.
I think I brought it up at the retreat, but recently was talking with a friend who was like, yeah, when you say the name of Jesus, it changes the atmosphere. And her strategy was like, so I'm not going to say the name right away, right? I'm going to like just kind of, and I know that there's different Christians who have different approaches, but I would say like, yeah, there's a lot of fake news out there about who Jesus is, and sometimes rightly so, people misrepresenting him. Um, I'm, I mean, that's par for the course when it comes to being a follower of Jesus. But like, how do we navigate that in a world where we are called to be bold and to share the hope that we have? And we'll definitely have somebody on to talk about that, I think, in more detail because it's a really important topic. It really
Hmm.
is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Um, okay, Frankie. Why did you want to come on this podcast, and what do you hope to get from this experience?
Um, I wanted to come on just because at the time I was like grasping for like something I could do, like something I could go and just have the like effort I'm putting towards to help others. And um yeah, I hope that out of this I can kind of become more comfortable to express like what I'm thinking regarding my faith, and like truly like think about and explore those sorts of things, because sometimes that just seems like it's not like safe to do, but I know it's important to be able to work through those things. So yeah, and I hope that um anyone who relates like gets to hear it and knows that it's not just them, because sometimes it really feels like it's just me thinking these things.
Hmm.
um so yeah.
Hmm. I love that. And is there anyone specific? I know that we did some shout outs when we were doing the retreat the other day and with
Yeah.
the recording, but as you've had some time to think about it, is there anyone specific that you would be like, man, if that person came on to talk about some of these issues, it would mean a lot to me?
Now I'm gonna forget their name. I I don't think I have like anyone specific. I know that I talked to my dad about it, and he mentioned that at the Apologetics conference there was the person who was doing the like, it was something about like direction.
Mm.
And I didn't get to hear it because I was going somewhere else. But I forget what his name was.
Is
I
that
think
the
I
one
mentioned him to
you
you.
texted? Yeah,
Yeah.
Trip Allman. Trip Allman.
Yes.
And his
Yes.
wife Megan. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Awful with names, but yes, I did want to hear what he was saying, because he was talking about God's direction and everything. So, which
Cool.
now feels really applicable to me. So,
Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
Okay. Well, Frankie, I'm excited for this. I am so excited to get to have more conversations with you. The way it's going to work this season is after we've had this conversation and I've taken some notes, we will prayerfully reach out to different guests to come on and share based on these topics you've brought up. And as I mentioned in the retreat time that we had, it's not just going to be your invitation, although if you are able to come and you want to co-host with me, I'm going to you're going to be my right hand person. But we'll also invite all the other girls to come along too, because these aren't just your questions. Like you said, there's other people who have these same questions. And I think, it's interesting as I've been thinking about what this season might look like. You know, for me, when I started finding something real, it was always for that girl who wasn't sure about Jesus. And I said she was the girl in the back pew, the proverbial back pew. And then, the girl in the proverbial front row or the front stage, like a lot of the same questions, different perspectives on those questions. And so I wouldn't be surprised if multiple co-hosts show up for a conversation that is maybe on the surface doesn't seem like their conversation, but actually it shows it's something that they wrestle with as well. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for taking time from your busy week to come and chat with me and to share your story openly and vulnerably and be real. And I am so grateful for you and for this opportunity to spend time with you. And I can't wait till we get to do this again. So
Yeah.
until next time.
Yes.